Development Days. My name is Valcomer, and we will be going through the Garrosh workshop. So, first thing that I want to ask you is, well, why is my spreadsheet not working? Or my slideshow? Oh, that's why. I'm on the final slide and not the first slide. Hey, I'm new to PowerPoints, let me tell you. Okay, so I want you guys to tell me in a single sentence what your definition is for a tank. If somebody can go ahead and give me their version, brave soul that you are.
Give vision, information, where you're at, peel.
Okay,
Someone who can control engages and mitigate risks for the rest of the party.
I like both of those. Anybody else? Okay, so the shortest version that I could come up with as I was thinking of this, and it's a little vague in it, is a tank is a frontline player that controls the game in a variety of ways. So we had some examples given there, and we'll go through that a little bit as well as far as controlling the team fight or providing vision. Garrosh is going to be a wall tank for us. Now there's different types of tanks. For example, Diablo is an engaged tank. He's diving in and causing stuff. Can Diablo be a wall? Yes, but typically you see a lot of players play him as a dive tank. A Nubarak is a dive tank. Garrosh, Arthas, Johanna, they're wall tanks. And so they typically will be there preventing the other team from gaining access to their backline. And you'll see Johanna do that with a condemn and a punish. You'll see Garrosh do that by actually throwing people away from his back line in some cases. You'll see Arthas, of course, doing that with his roots and also his frozen tempest. And so wall tanks, generally speaking, don't have a high amount of mobility, and Garrosh has no mobility whatsoever, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. But it's their job often to anchor a position and prevent the enemy team from getting to their team. Wall tanks often do very well against dive tanks because their job is to prevent that. And so, for example, if one team has a Nubarak and the other team has Diablo and both teams' tanks dive, generally speaking, the Anubarak's going to die first in that case, if just because he doesn't have as much health, right? But you take that same scenario, and a Diablo tries to dive a Garrosh's backline, and Garrosh tosses him out of there, and Diablo doesn't have anything to engage with for a set amount of time now. So different tank responsibilities, and I heard a couple of these given. So vision control, warding, you'll also hear it referred to as anchoring, where we keep our team safe, and we'll see an example of this later on, by knowing where the enemy team is and being able to prevent them from getting ambushed, prevent our team from getting ambushed by the enemy team. And so that's a very important aspect of tanking. Another portion is being the meat shield or the sponge. So if the enemy Hanzo is going to fire this huge dragon arrow across the map, and it's going to wreck the team, and he's going to use play of the game to show up, and everybody's just mega stunned. If we as the tank can absorb that skill shot away from our team, and now Hanzo doesn't have a full team that's stunned that he's diving into, he just has us, that's a win. There was a clip that sadly it didn't make the spreadsheet today, where as Garrosh I eat a divine storm, and a Endurance of Hate to follow it up, while running through a Slowing Sands. And so I pop my Indomitable, I run through 3 different ultimates that now connect with 0 of my team because it didn't connect with me. And I hadn't remembered that moment before watching the clip, but man, it felt good. And I was watching it from my point of view, with my comms, so I was able to hear myself kind of cackle as I ran out of this crowd control lockdown combo that a 5-man organized team was throwing at me, and meant to kill me and then catch other people because of Endurance of Hate in the engage, and nothing happened because as a tank I had that ability to get out of that one. Peeling. Tanks tend to have higher health and ways to deal with absorbing that damage, which is why they're the meat shields. But your squishy backline often don't have that ability. You know, if we look at a Li Ming, for example, if she doesn't have teleport ready to go and the enemy team can engage upon her, she is extremely vulnerable in that case. If you look at Jaina and she hasn't finished Ice Block yet, if they get a hold of her, she's dead. So that's the idea of peeling. Engaging, of course, is kind of the opposite. We want to be able to attack the enemy on our terms. And so as a tank, we need to have some sort of an engage. And then kind of connected into those two, of course, is lockdown. We need to be able to take our chosen target, make sure that they stay put long enough for our damage to deal with them and to remove them from the battlefield. So this is Garrosh's kit, his abilities. So Groundbreaker, you can see, is his attack, or excuse me, his medium range stun and slow. You're going to oftentimes combo that with Wrecking Ball, or use it to prevent an enemy from walking at your team. If you see from your anchor position in the book that they are starting to move forward, you can hit them with a Groundbreaker at a distance, dismount them, stun them. They'll be stunned and then slowed right after, and that can give your team the ability to remove themselves from a bad position. The base cooldown on Groundbreaker is only 8 seconds, and so we would want to use that over something like Wrecking Ball, because Wrecking Ball, 1, requires them to be right on us, and 2, is double the cooldown. Bloodthirst is your heal ability. It's received some buffs in the last year that have been nice quality of life improvements. Sorry, let me get a drink of water here. And basically it allows the heal to proc faster. And so that has increased Garrosh survivability. But it is based on missing health, and you get double the healing when you hit a hero instead of anything else. Wrecking Ball, this is what Garrosh is known for. Being able to grab a target, toss them into your back line, and watch them die before their team can save them. Everybody, if you've played Heroes for more than a month, has experienced this scenario. So we as Garrosh players want to use this to the best of our abilities to get all the kills we want. Warlord's Challenge is by far the more popular ultimate, having that short radius silence, but because it's one of the longest silences in the game that doesn't require a channel like Stukov's, by having that group silence for 2 seconds, the goal is to blow up somebody on the enemy team before they have a chance to escape. Decimate is, while the less popular heroic, is my personal favorite because it extends Garrosh's threat radius. So yes, you can use Groundbreaker and you can slow somebody after the stun, and you oftentimes can run up to them and then toss them with Wrecking Ball. you'll see in the combo later, you often want to hit Groundbreaker second so that you have that slow on while you, or excuse me, you've got the stun and the slow while the enemies are as close to you as possible. And so Decimate allows you to set up your own combos from a larger radius. And so where Garrosh doesn't have any innate mobility, because Decimate is a slow right out of the gate, now you're able to move that much faster than your enemy. It also works particularly well against Foolish Summoner of clones. So Samuro it works really well against. Nova it works really well against because those units are still counted as heroes for Decimate's cooldown reduction. Now finally the trait of Garrosh is his armor up passive. So for every 2% of health that he loses, he will gain armor for 1% of armor. Up to 49 armor baseline. Unfortunately, the 49 armor doesn't last long because at 1% health, you fall even though you're taking half damage almost from everything. Now, strengths for Garrosh. To quickly list a few, I built these slides, but your ganks, your siege, or your anti-siege, excuse me. So as we go through these, everybody is aware of his early game. You toss somebody while they weren't paying attention, they face checked a bush, boom. Strong anti-siege, if someone walks up to a tower and they're not paying attention, you can oftentimes toss them into your towers. And much like a Diablo flip, now they're going to be toast in that case. Being a durable sponge, the armor gives him extremely effective health, or extremely high effective health. So the math's been run on Garrosh, and typically his effective health pool, given the grade that it grows at, is about 29% higher than his actual health pool because of how the curve works out. Now, sure, if you were able to run around as 30% health Garrosh, and now you've got 35 armor, and you're able to have a trickle healer like a White Mane or a Malfurion, that you're just constantly skirting that edge, or Lucio works really well on that. You're constantly skirting that edge, and you're taking a little bit of damage, and you're staying at that high armor, and you're regenerating the health. Throw in a shield too. Garrosh works extremely well with shield characters because the armor makes the shield more effective. Because of those things, you would be able to then have an extremely high effective health pool. So if somebody has 25 armor, because every damage dealt to them is reduced by 25%, to deal the same amount of damage, it's as if they had to deal 133% of the damage for Garrosh to take 100% of it. And that's just how the multipliers work. And if you have 50 damage or 50 armor, which again isn't actually possible baseline with Garrosh, but if you have 50 armor, you would then require 200% damage to be dealt to equal the normal 100% of damage. And so that helps make him a very powerful and durable sponge. Both of his ultimates are powerful. Now, people will say, oh, but Decimate's not powerful. Yeah, but it's on an 8-second cooldown. And so I have absolutely had times where running Decimate, I have been able to just punish an enemy team. They're staying too close. They can't get away. It essentially gives you an Arthas-like aura that's wider than Arthas's aura for slowing people. And with your level 20 upgrade of Deadly Calm, everybody's doing 40% less damage. There is a very niche build with Oppressor at level 7 and Deadly Calm at level 20, where effectively you cannot die to any mage whether they be ranged or melee, once you hit them with your first decimate, because now you get to the point where you're right on top of them. They're dealing 40% less damage. You're taking, depending on your armor, anywhere from that 10 to 20 to 30% less damage, and your oppressor is reducing their spell power again by 40%, and so their damage just becomes absurdly low to you. It requires a lot of perfect scenarios, and you give up one of your saves, but man alive, is it just, it's so crazy to have that. Clear engages, similar to a taunt variant. A Garrosh toss is a very clear call, a clarion call, if you will, to your team of, we need to kill that person. So, and then Garrosh, and this is one of my favorite parts of him, Garrosh is one of the most supportive tanks because he has multiple saves in his tree. So being able to toss people away from your allies and also toss your allies into the fray away from evil people is huge. Having your own unstoppable with undomitable is huge. It's one of the reasons why Johanna was so popular for so long and still is fairly popular even though she was reduced in power, is she had a self-save. Garrosh has that as well at level 4. I'm of the belief that they ought to have it become baseline and figure out a way to have it unlock over time so that it's not there in that level 1 fight, but who knows. For weaknesses, push the button one too many times there. So as we mentioned before, there is no mobility talent for Garrosh. You know, if you look at Johanna, she can have Conviction at level 4. She can take Fanaticism at level 16. She can even take Falling Sword at level 10, all of which give her mobility. For Arthas, while late game, he can take Death's Advance at level 20 to give him a permanent move speed buff. Every single tank has some sort of mobility somewhere in their kit or their talents, except Garrosh. Even Uther, who's a fringe tank, has movement at level 4 for 25% if you want to take it. Garrosh does not. Now, over a scenario like Arthas, 1, Arthas is very late game, and 2, Garrosh has a little bit more immediate threat than Arthas, and is just more popular in the current meta. There are plenty of people who will say that Garrosh really power spikes around level 10, and everybody else catches up to that or after that point, and so they're, because of that, they actually did rework his level 16 and some of his level 20s to help with that. But it's, by late game, it can be very difficult because now Garrosh can become more and more of a burst target in a front to back comp by that time. His engages are fairly predictable. If you see a Garrosh running at you, he doesn't run faster than you, and so you run the other way, and your team should have some tools to deal with that. He is weak to percent damage or true damage, depending on what MOBA you've come from. So we'll see that as we go on. But any character that deals percentage-based damage is now ignoring his armor. Garrosh's base health pool is actually fairly low, and so to have that where now all of your armor is ignored hurts. So among tanks, he is below a Nubarak in base health pool. Varian in bruiser mode has more base health than Garrosh. In tank mode, Varian gets way beyond. But they're the one that always surprises me is base health. Valera is only 13 health lower than Garrosh. So again, his base health is pretty low, and so being able to bypass his armor and get rid of his effective health and just take him to base health hurts. He's susceptible to slows in particular. If you'll use your Indomitable a lot to break out of something that you know is coming, whether it's a knockback or a stun. But slows often will reapply in some form or fashion, whether that's Chromie slowing sands or Jaina frostbite, even Arthas, though Arthas is not one that Garrosh is typically afraid of. Because slows are that soft crowd control, they're often on either lower cooldowns or have some sort of reapplication process. And so for Garrosh, imagine being shot by a constant Tassadar laser that is slowing you, and that's just like, I hate my life. I can't do anything. Lunara is pretty annoying to him as well, because of those persistent slows and her baseline movement speed. Counters. ETC is like the perfect Garrosh counter in tanks. I personally don't like to pick up Garrosh until I know either the enemy team's tank already or that ETC is off the board. Because of ETC being able to knock back on a fairly low cooldown, 12 seconds baseline, and being able to slide away with power slide, he can be very annoying to a Garrosh. May, with her Blizzard being a fairly large slowing zone that constantly reapplies up until the stun, and she has a knockback, and she has a shield. I think that May, who is currently the highest win rate tank in the game, is likely due for some numbers adjustments, but right now she's pretty annoying. Brightwing, because of how predictable your engage is, she's just going to polymorph you and everyone runs away. Lucio, everybody now moves faster than you, and he has a knockback. Stukov, plink, 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 he's just going to take Spine Launcher and laugh in your face. Anduin, a lot of people consider a hard counter to Garrosh. Maybe their big miss of Pandaria fan, where Anduin did directly interrupt Garrosh's plans. But the fact that you can toss a target and Anduin can yoink them right back is quite tough. Chromie, between slowing sands, time traps, and even sandblasts, makes it for a rough game. And she's very meta right now, which is one of the reasons that Garrosh is down. Your ranged auto attackers you'll see there, all four of those are of such great range that they can just poke Garrosh constantly. Two of them have knockbacks. One of them has a slow. Hanzo's got a leap over a wall escape. And then you can see three of our famous percent damage heroes bringing up the next. Pairings for Garrosh. So move speed pairings are stupid good with Garrosh. You want to cheese a team, get yourself a Zarya player and Garrosh, and you are going to run at people at 50% bonus move speed with shields to boot, toss them, and be able to run back to your team all before the shield expires. Ragnaros gives that as well. Lucio's a pretty mean one, and in either of his ults are fantastic for Garrosh. Having the constant unstoppable means that Garrosh probably doesn't need to take Indomitable anymore, which opens up taking his Bloodthirst talents at level 4. Brightwing, 1, you're taking away a counter. 2, she can also provide move speed, and her heal is a percentage-based heal, and so you can get really low, survive really long, and then boom, you get a fairly big heal from her. Follow-up CC, all of those are somewhat self-explanatory. You have them get tossed into your backline, and your backline locks them down so they can't get away. Uther in particular works really well because Uther armor and Garrosh armor stack. Most armors do not stack, but Garrosh armor stacks with other armors. And so, like, if Brightwing gives you Fairy Dust, you'll see that your armor actually comes up with both, where you have your baseline armor and then your baseline armor plus Brightwing armor showing for your spell armor. Burst damage. So all three of these characters are typically very short range, and so if when we toss someone, if they're ready to go, they just unload their full combo and do it from extreme safety, even if they don't kill that person. But let's face it, they're probably going to kill them. Even if they don't kill that person is in no position to continue the fight, and they get to remain safe even though they're relatively squishy. Healing denial can be quite nice as well, because now you've done the work of capturing that person, tossing them into your backline, slamming them down with a slow, and now the enemy team is going to have a tough time saving them because of healing denial. And those are three examples of it. Garrosh works very well against engage and dive tanks, as we mentioned before. A lot of people think that Johanna is a Garrosh counter. I'm going to show you some clips as we go on here that, frankly, that's just not the case. There are players who are extremely proficient on Johanna, and they will be a little bit more wise, but because it's a wall versus wall tank, eventually she's not going to have her shield, and you're going to make her pay for it. Short range damage dealers. Yes, Cassia does get armor ignoring talent, but it's not till level 20. So if you're having trouble ending the game and we're hitting level 20, which is getting more common now, there's things that we can do to continue to mitigate that. Jaina is very short range. Yes, the slows can be a problem, but if she steps up to combo and she didn't take either range at 1 for Frostbolt or range at 13 for Blizzards, we're going to unstoppable through her initial slow and toss her into the back line, and she's too squishy to survive that. And of course, anything stationary. We love people who sit still. Now, if the enemy Tassadar goes auto attack, he's going to be trouble for you, but he has to continue auto attacking you, and every time he does that, he turrets. So if he's wise, he's going to be able to decently stutter step, but most Tassadars tend to get a little too focused in that, and then their shock ray, of course, locks them in place as well. Talent builds. So this is the first one that I would recommend. People are not using this one enough, in my opinion. And actually, I should pause and go back here. What questions do we have now that we're 25 minutes in? I think I'm still in Discord. Is anybody out there?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, we out here.
All right. If no questions, we'll keep barreling through. Sadly, it's not a Chen discussion, or that would be a really good dad joke. But talent builds, body check. I don't think people are using body check enough. So body check, of course, coming in with at level 1, you have 30% healing reduction, but at level 20, you have 75% healing reduction. I love taking this build against Muradin. Absolutely love it. If there's a Muradin on the other team, watch me, bro. You're going to think you're going to pop Stone Form. It's not going to work. Now, the level 13, really you can pick anything. I like Blood Craze because of the additional healing it gives me, which in this case takes you to 15% of your maximum health in that case. And then Seasoned Soldier at level 16 gives me another charge of that. And so I'm going to go in, I'm going to get a hold of somebody, I'm going to toss them, I'm going to ground pound them with Groundbreaker, and I'm going to get the taunt off on them. And really, as the game goes on, I'm probably not going to use Groundbreaker on them as much because of the combo we're going to show later. A healer like Whitemane, who she has fantastic throughput healing. Not when it's negative 75%. That's a pretty big deal for us. Groundbreaker build. This is your most meta build for Garrosh. Now, I didn't put together a clip for this combo, but we can talk about it a little bit more. But because of the cooldown reduction at level 1 with Warbringer and the shield on defensive measures at level 16, you now have a shield that lasts for 6 seconds that's actually a pretty large shield. By the time you get to level 13, I believe it has scaled to be somewhere in the realm of about 600 health. Again, shields work extremely well with your armor trait. And so this one, because of the cooldown that you get from level 1, is really extremely durable. It does require more faith in your healer than taking Blood Craze into Seasoned Soldier. But if you've got your healer who is really on point, this one can create so many shields over and over and over again. It's really strong against dive comps because now you have Groundbreaker up even more. And once you get to level 16, which is Mortal Combo, you can now reduce the cooldown of Wrecking Ball by 10 seconds. At level 20, you can actually reduce the cooldown of Wrecking Ball by 20 seconds twice. So you can get a slam, one toss, a second toss, and then a third toss, all during the cooldown reduction period of the Mortal Combo at level 16. And so by doing this, the team dives into you, you toss them, you slam them, you run up to them, you toss them, you run up to them, you toss them, and you don't have to do, excepting the very first toss, you don't have to do a full distance toss. The first toss, because you have to have the Groundbreaker and the Wrecking Ball hit within 3 seconds of each other, those you need a full length toss. But after that, you can toss the people in the air twice. But what that's going to do is make it so that they have no control of their character during that time. After all of that, if you want, you can then taunt them. So you now have 5 seconds where just you created absolute loss of control for those players. If your team does not kill them in 5 seconds, it's a different conversation we gotta have. It might be comms, it might be lack of focus fire, but it's a different combination or conversation, because at this point you have locked them down for so much time. Finally, this is probably one of the least meta builds, but this is my personal favorite. You will see me running this in organized play. You will see me running this in Storm League, all over the place, because I love Decimate. And the combination of Decimate with my 13 and 16s, and then with the Deadly Comet 20, means that I just have so much healing going on that's self-healing, and I'm reducing stuff. And in my mind, this build is designed so that the healer doesn't have to worry about me. Heal someone else. I got this. Now, if you're in a scenario where the other team doesn't take a lot of lockdown, I would swap out In for the Kill Thirst for Battle at level 4, which is your cooldown reduction, again, with basic attacks against enemy heroes. But this is designed to smooth out Garrosh's power curve and then give him that late game power with Decimate into Deadly Calm. And so this is my particular favorite in the game right now. Okay, some tips for Garrosh. First, Zen in the bush.
Wait. Quick question.
Sure.
Yeah. Would you include something like Illidan to the melee assassins category? So if it's melee, but it's pretty agile.
You're saying to go against build 2 or as far as like favorable matchups?
No, I'm in Talon build number 3. You mentioned that it is good against wall tanks and melee assassins. Would you include something like Illidan into the melee assassins category here?
For Illidan, absolutely. So Illidan's healing is based off of his ability to deal melee damage. And so with Deadly Calm, if I am reducing Illidan's heat damage by 40%, he's not killing my team as much, but he's also not healing. And this actually gives me a fair amount of spell power against Illidan. Now, if I don't need the save from Into the Fray, yeah, I could take Intimidation at level 7 to help reduce his ability to auto attack and get cooldown reduction and heal. But Deadly Calm at level 20 will take away 40% of his damage and 40% of his healing.
Okay, so we're usually assuming that this game won't end until the level 20s. That's expected.
And we want to look at is Illidan going the hunt or is Illidan going metamorphosis? Because this is going to work better against metamorphosis. This is probably going to work better against the hunt.
Okay, another question. You mentioned Uther as a good synergy pick because armor stacks. Okay, but it is a better synergy if we draft them late in the draft because they're both kind of immobile, kind of like to be in the people's faces. So they're kind of counted by the same stuff, right?
Sure, Uther doesn't have a lot of mobility either. You open up the combination for the Holy Hand Grenade of Antioch with Uther and Garrosh, which is you can into the fray Uther into the enemy team, and Uther will cast Divine Storm. At which point you then walk up to the enemy team using this combo and you taunt them, and so that is the Holy Hand Grenade of Antioch in Heroes of the Storm.
How big is the range of the Into the Fray? It's like comparable to our Q, right?
Yeah, it's comparable to Wrecking Ball's natural range. So you can pull off the same thing with Anduin and a light bomb target. It doesn't have to be Anduin necessarily that you toss, but you can toss a target that Anduin light bombs to have them be the second version of the Holy Hand Grenade.
Okay, thanks.
But yeah, he does pair very well with Uther because if you already have 30 armor and Garrosh, or excuse me, and now Uther gives you another 25, and now you're at 80 armor, or if Uther took Devotion at level 20 and now you're at 75 armor because that's the innate armor cap. If at 75 armor people have to do 400% of their normal damage to do 100% of it to you, which is just nutty durable. And so in that case, if you were going to pick up both Garrosh and Uther, yes, to your point, and I think that was Gollum, but I'm not sure if I got the
Yeah.
Okay. To your point there of, well, They both don't have a ton of mobility. We want to bring somebody else that has the mobility to the team. And it may be that we're running a very artillery style and we just are waiting for the team to walk into our artillery zone, which means we may have Chromie, we may have Zul'jin, we may have Hammer on our team to keep them away from our artillery. We now have this lock 'em down combo of Uther Garrosh. It may be that we have an alternate engage. It could be a Maiev, it could be a Sonya with leap. It doesn't even have to be leap. It could be a Sonya with spear that just comes in. But there's quite a few bruisers that have really strong engage tools right now. It could be a Wraith walk into Entomb Leoric. It could be a Speed of the Devil Malthael on a pale horse type of thing. There's all sorts of ways to get in there and just make somebody's life bad. And so yes, it depends on the comp you're building, but if you have planned Uther and Garrosh, let's plan something that's either artillery where we get to sit back and they've got to walk through our double wall, or we plan something else that has an engage.
Or we're picking them late into the draft, and we know that. I'm not entirely sure how we would be picking them late into the draft because at least Tudor seems like a somewhat of a priority target. But yeah, so we would like to be sure that they either really do love to hug our frontline, or at least they do not have mobile and pokey kind of style champions.
Yeah, and we want to be careful on when we
For
pick
example,
Garrosh because
because
there are a lot of threats to him. But we can say that about several of the tanks out there. There's very few tanks right now that I feel need to be early picked. We're in a very, very deadly assassin meta at the moment.
also a lot of tanks have tools to counter specific type of champions, not only in terms of surviving themselves, but to help other team survive. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And thank you for the questions. Any other questions, or shall we jump into the next one? Okay. We're in the home stretch here. So Garrosh tips, Zen in the bush. You can see here on the bottom corner with the mini map, we're invading. Now, yes, we're up tens, but we're not so far up that it's an easy invade here. But we are hanging out in the bush. We're on our mount. We're making sure that our team has a safe exit. Now, one mistake that we have here that you can't actually see is I'm currently standing on top of Lunara's Wisp. Lunara's Wisp should be in the bush forward into the enemy team to give us that vision. And I want to be in this bush because it's the crossroads of multiple places that the enemy team could come from, and we see the enemy team down below us. So take your time, enjoy your peace in the bush. You using Wrecking Ball on this camp, not that helpful to your team if the enemy team comes in and catches you invading. Next tip, you want to condition your enemies. And I realize that sounds strange, but you want to be able to tell your team when you are throwing the enemy away and when you're throwing them in. And so we want to teach them to use their saves poorly. I'm going up against a tank in these next couple clips that has played Johanna tons of times. And they early picked Johanna both games, and we throttled them both games on Johanna. So everybody ignore the enemy tank's name. They're a wonderful person. We throttled them this game. So you can see I toss them out. I toss them out. Third clip, they've used their shield early because every time I just come in and toss them out, I toss them in the air and kill them. And there's more clips. I didn't quite make it to all of them. Just in that match where Johanna comes in and we toss them out. Johanna comes in, we toss them out. Johanna comes in, we toss them out. Eventually Johanna will start engaging by pushing their shield and running at you, just so that they can get some sort of engage on your backline. At this point, we wait 4 seconds. Her shield goes away, or 6 seconds at level 16. And then we just clobber her. I think I've got Baby Valk trying to come through the door. Next, your different combos. So Wrecking Ball into Groundbreaker. I recorded this one in try mode today, but you'll see it's a max range E, it's a max range Q. They line up perfectly. If you take the Wrecking Ball upgrade of Unrivaled Strength at level 1, it still works just fine. You go from being on the inside edge to the outside edge. But I pushed my keys immediately after each other in this case. Your next one, Wrecking Ball into Warlord's Challenge. You want to cast your taunt while they're in the air. And it will hit them before they get out of range of the taunt. They remain taunted. You can see on the edge of this, the third dummy is not in range. The taunt range for you to hit all three, you basically have to be standing on the center dummy. And there's times that you'll still miss them. And so taunting while they're in the air means that Johanna can't activate her shield when she lands, because she lands taunted, and your team just needs to blow her up during that time. Next, while this goes for all tanks.
Okay, another question.
Sure.
For whatever reason, it often happens to me that when I EQ, for whatever reason, character queues into the random direction and or throws them in the wrong direction.
What mode are you playing with on your quick cast?
Yeah, quick cast, just quick cast. Not on release, just quick cast. So, is it supposed to be something with my mouse or ping?
It throws to wherever your mouse is. So if you hit both buttons together and don't move your mouse, you will ground pound in the same direction. Now, there may be times that you twitch, there may be times that you have a bit of latency. There's times where I just botch a throw, and I botch a lot of throws.
Yeah.
And at that point, you just call it to your team and wait for cooldowns.
Okay.
So, for this one could apply to all tanks, but your damage players, they need their cooldowns to be effective. And so if you toss someone and you have no damage from your team, it might be that you didn't communicate it. It might not be that your damage is just bad. There are times where they'll make the mistake too, but whether you're pinging that your abilities are ready, you're saying in comms, hey, I'm looking. We need to have that planned out. We need to call it out. And we want to plan it ahead of the game. Are we a front to back comp, meaning that we're going to kill the tank first and then go after the rest of the team? Are we in an ambush, the straggler? Are we the hyenas picking them off on the edge of the herd because they were behind on the rotation? How are we doing that? And we want to plan that in advance because the cooldowns are too precious. We don't want to have 16 seconds where we spent cooldowns and we can't do anything and the enemy team just gets to run around for free. We don't like that. We like to punish them for their insolence. Practice time, and I meant to get to this sooner. We only have a few more minutes before our next segments, but I want you to load up heroes. I want you to go into try mode if you're solo, or if you can get a buddy and you're both practicing Garrosh and sandbox mode in custom games, great. If you only want to practice stuff in games, it's going to take you so many more times to get the same chances to practice your combos. If you want to practice your combo 100 times and it's got a 16-second cooldown limiter, okay, 1600 seconds, minute 60 seconds, I don't know how many times you're going to have 30-minute games to be able to do that, and that's off of cooldown. We can erase cooldowns and just practice that over and over and over. The clips that I showed earlier when talking about the combos, I did the combo something like 5 to 10 times and then just rewatched it till I found one that I liked, and I clipped that one and added it to the slideshow. But for so many combos, whether you're trying to practice a Diablo APOC combo, whether you're trying to practice a Wrecking Ball into Groundbreaker combo or a Wrecking Ball taunt combo, so many of them, if you can go into custom games and practice them, you can gain that muscle memory. If you want to become the Lucio that can always interrupt an ETC mosh, do it in custom games. Run it in a sandbox and just practice that 100 times, and you'll start to build that muscle memory. It took me from just playing Garrosh until level 38 before I felt comfortable. I had logged over 100 games before I felt comfortable with him. I'm telling you, save yourself time, go into practice mode, run these different combos, and then start taking it into live games where you can limit test and see just how far can you survive. But for getting down your combo, run this. Grab a friend and see, both of you can practice Garrosh combos in custom games against each other. You can play hide and seek as far as, say you're rotating on Volskaya, because that's one of the sandbox modes. You put your friend on a damage character and you try to see, okay, where can I reasonably run at this person from this bush or from this bush before they see, or do I need to lead with a Groundbreaker? And now you can get that chance to just absolutely rep the crap out of it and develop that strength for you. That is the end on everything. I'd love to field any last minute questions before we get you off to your next segments, which it looks like we've got Heroes to Broadcasting is next. All right, if there's no questions, I'm going to go ahead and shut down the stream, but thanks everybody for being here. I appreciate it, and enjoy the rest of the stuff tonight in Heroes, including Master Clash coming up in a little over an hour. But I think the broadcasting one's going to be sweet.
Thank you.